Eyewitness News, Connecticut's most watched local political program. This is Face the State.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us for Face the State on this last Sunday of March. I'm Dennis House. You just saw on Eyewitness News the most recent numbers and headlines on the coronavirus crisis here in Connecticut. We get daily updates from the state and federal governments on what is happening. But how is all of that compiled? First up this Sunday, Max Reiss. He is the Director of Communications for Governor Lamont. Max is joining me via Skype as Face the State will also practice some safe distancing. And Max, first of all, great to see you here in the program. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, it's great to see you, Dennis. Thanks for having me today.
And I'll point out that not only are you juggling the communications for the governor's staff, but you also have twins at home, and your wife, Kelly, is a counselor at a school, so she's working at home as well.
Dennis, I have twins, a wife, and a mother-in-law, in addition to a state to help run, so everything's going great.
Yeah, you're juggling a lot of balls, my friend. Yeah. All right, well, first of all, walk us through what happens in the day, day in the life of Governor Lamont these days, because it's not a normal day.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a lot of time spent at the residence. You know, the amount of time spent actually in the office has been minimized incredibly. You know, many viewers, many people around the state saw that we were holding briefings at the Armory for a couple of days. Now we've gone to this other format over at the state capitol. And he starts his day at the Armory, at the residence, spends most of his day at the residence. And then it's essentially call after call after call. You know, some days it's calls with hospitals, some days it's with employers, some hours it might be, with a bunch of state lawmakers, maybe with members of General Assembly. And then it's also updates, from our public health folks, from our education folks, meetings that would maybe be scheduled for the office or maybe one-offs at agencies. We've had to condense them down into phone calls or video calls a lot of the time. And that's taken a lot of adjusting, but we've still been able to successfully work toward that briefing every day to make sure we're getting out as much information as we can.
There does seem to be a bit of a separation. We don't see him with as many aides as we did even a couple of days ago. We haven't seen him with Lieutenant Governor Bisowitz in over a week. Is that intentional to keep everyone as far apart as possible?
The governor's been pretty clear about it, right? The man is in the age group, right? He's in his mid-60s. He's in the age group where he is potentially more at risk than others, and we want to make sure we're practicing social distancing. What's not a good idea is for us to crowd around him, the way we used to. And we're all trying to make sure we're both leading by example, but also trying to keep all of us safe.
This is all, impacting all of us very differently. But I noticed that the governor seemed almost emotional at times. When I had him on our special program last week, he mentioned that the gentleman from New Canaan who died was a friend of his father's. So how was he personally taking all of this?
Yeah, I think that, this is a different kind of moment for Governor Lamont. I think it's a different kind of moment for all of us. And when we're in those briefings, a lot of the time, what he will say is, all right, if I'm a mom at home and I'm watching my kids right now, but I also have a job, what does this mean for me? Really trying to bring it home as to what this impact is. And it hasn't been lost. He's been very clear that these are unprecedented times we're living in, and that the state is looking to him and looking to us for answers. And we need to make sure that those answers, that we're providing those answers on a regular basis.
Some of the experts say that this will peak in a couple of weeks. So we're just sort of on that trajectory upward. What is the state doing right now to sort of flatten that curve as best they can?
So, the messaging, look, you saw late in the week, Dennis, that we changed from gatherings of 50 down to gatherings of 5. We know that people are already abiding by these warnings and these orders. But when you change the numbers from 50 down to 5, we hope that changes the psychology for a lot of people, where maybe if they were dropping into the office from time to time, maybe you shouldn't do that anymore. Maybe try to limit those trips to certain retailers, some of the ones who have very limited hours and such. And we're trying to get that word out of stay safe, stay home, stay safe, stay home over and over and over again, because we all know that that's how we're going to flatten the curve, and that's how we're going to keep all of our loved ones safe.
The governor told me that he has been, talking to CEOs, as you know, and asking them to help out. In which specific ways might we see help from some of the big companies around here in terms of maybe they'll be making certain products or helping financially?
So we have a couple of different things going on. I mean, number one, we've been taking in personal protective equipment donations. That's number one. A lot of these companies, institutions of higher learning, schools, but also private employers, they have their own caches, their own stockpiles of PPE, and that's been coming in. We also have our state's chief manufacturing officer, Colin Cooper, working with companies, existing manufacturers. I spoke to one manufacturer the other day who works in the textile industry. saying, look, I want to help make some masks. I got him on the phone with Colin Cooper about that. There's a lot of things like that happening. Remember, we're trying to do what we can do on at the state level, knowing that there will be different levels of support coming to the federal level, but we're trying to work with those partners as much as we can.
Max, I know the Capitol is closed, and perhaps you can't answer this question today, but do we know when the legislature might get back to work, and would that session be extended?
Yeah, there are so many questions. I think, I believe the building is closed now till mid-April, if I'm not mistaken, as of now. I from time to time, I will need to drop in, if every now and then up into the office. It's very rare, but I do get up there. I think these are unprecedented times, and I think that I think over the next week we'll have a better idea when we see what the cases begin to look like, when we can get back to something of what we got used to normal looking like, I think, over the next week or two.
As you look at the state's response in the last couple of weeks, and it's been getting some good reviews from people, and also Wallet Hub ranked us as one of the most aggressive states in the nation in terms of battling the coronavirus. But when you look back at it, is there a deficiency that the state was not prepared for that we might have done a better job with?
I think that everyone could have probably been a little bit faster. I think that's definitely true. I think that across our agencies, no matter what, we all could have been faster. But I also think that because we're trying to do is save lives, right? We're trying to save lives and keep people healthy. We don't want people like, younger people like my kids going around with this thing. And I think that no matter what, I think what's going to happen moving forward is we're going to start taking these public health issues at the earlier stages more seriously. But I think that we reacted as reasonably fast as we could. To your point, we were making some decisions that other states took weeks to make in some cases. But I think that moving forward, we're all going to move a lot quicker the next time one of these pandemics rolls around. And we're hoping that we're going to keep making the right steps.
Max, one thing that Americans certainly have learned is that we rely on China for many of our medical supplies and certainly medicines. Do you foresee when we get through this, that perhaps the governor will put some pressure on some Connecticut companies or try to lure some Connecticut companies, companies to Connecticut to try to make those products here?
I think that no matter what, we want to improve the supply chain for all these materials. I think there's no doubt. There were early discussions weeks ago when we were talking about face masks, that there are only so many of those manufacturers in the country. And I think what's clear is that there's some companies here in Connecticut that are ready to do that stuff, right? Just what we talked about a moment ago. And I think that there are ways for us to help bring some of that supply chain, some of that production right here. I think that's something we would absolutely love to do.
Max Reiss, Communications Director for the Governor. We appreciate you joining us, and best of luck with your twins, your wife, and your mother-in-law. Not to mention your job.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it, Dennis. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, Max. In a moment,